Welcome to the Screen the Screener College Basketball Podcast with your hosts, Mike Randall and Gus Kearns.
Hi, welcome and listeners to the Screen the Screener College Basketball Podcast, where we're always talking everything college hoops. And we just had a gigantic Saturday where you had unbelievable events happening time after time. And what we've decided to do is we decided to bring in another guest for you. We brought in Jeff Nadu. Please give him a follow at Jeff Nadu, capital J, capital N, on Twitter. And don't forget to hit his website at BOMCwins.com. Jeff, welcome to the podcast. Let's talk some college hoops. Thanks for jumping on. Listen, we know you're a Philly guy, so we're going to hit you right up with some Philly questions. Is that all right with you?
Yeah, Gus, I guess I made kind of a good impression, or maybe I didn't. It's BMOC, Gus, not BOMC.
Oh, geez. Well, that might be my poor reading and spelling coming into play there.
It's all good,
Can you please reference Jeff's, mention there instead of mine? BMOCwins.com. My bad.
No problem.
All right. So let's talk some Philly hoops.
Love to.
First place we got to go is Nova, right?
Yep.
What are we doing with this Wildcat team currently? Do we give them a little time here to figure this stuff out with roles and rotations? Do they have the high level talent like they've had in years past, Jeff, with players like Brunson and Hart and Bridges? Is that NBA type of talent there on the roster yet? And do they have a legit shot in the Big East here? Where do you stand with Villanova on the whole? And, if you want to get into what would you like to do with them in the Big East betting wise, please go there as well.
Yeah, I think for them, I think you're kind of hitting that lull period in Villanova where I actually thought it would be a great time for Jay Wright if he wanted to make the move to the NBA to do it. Last year's team was, I think there, but I never was really too confident in them, and I'm sure you felt the same. I think this year's team is really similar, and I'm coming across kind of an odd problem for Villanova. They're having issues developing their big-time talent, at least lately. You look at Javon Quinterly last year. He never played, ended up transferring. You look at Brian Antoine this year. I mean, their big-time recruit. He hasn't really been a factor. So it's kind of a weird thing right now at Villanova where they haven't necessarily been able to hit on some of this big talent. Do I think that they're a team that I'd be looking to bet on or look towards as a future going forward? No, because I think – you look at some of the key factors that I'm looking at, and I think what you have to look at, this is not a good defensive team. I mean, they've had struggle all year on that side of the end. They're really dependent on the three-point shot. You look at their point distribution, it's top 10 in the country come three-point line. They're just too dependent on that. They have no bench. They're a really young team from an experience perspective. They only have a couple guys that are kind of stone-cold veterans. You look at this current experience, I mean, 332nd in the country. That's one of the lowest out there. There's just not a lot of, advanced and experienced talent here. As far as NBA players, I think Jeremiah Robinson Earl is an NBA player. He reminds me a little bit of Michael Beasley. I think he's got great size. And I do think if they were to somehow lose him with an injury or something, I think they'd have a lot of trouble. But no, this is not one of Jay's better teams. And you look at it in both step-up games, Baylor and Ohio State weren't able to get the job done. So even from a Big East perspective, no, I like a few different teams over Villanova personally.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a couple of different points there. Number one, I think we don't know if there's NBA talent there just because they haven't had the opportunity to expose themselves to that type of success. And then number two, you mentioned the dependence on the three-pointer. That's the trend of the sport, and it's been a total copycat situation with the NBA as far as the Warriors and whoever else is going to, bomb a number of different threes, have over 50% of their shot attempts from there. But with the line moved back, and we'll get to that a little bit later, maybe this hurts a team like Villanova that's so dependent on the three-pointer, and maybe it hurts a team, maybe not yet, like Auburn, that's so dependent on the three-pointer and really invests a lot of their offense in that. So, I think there's questions there.
I just kind of noticed that, like, if that's your only dependent way to score, it's just not sustainable, like, longer term. Eventually, you're going to have a bad shooting night, and eventually you're probably going to have it happen in the NCAA tournament. Look, I don't think that Villanova is not going to make the tournament or anything, but there's some growing concerns. And like I said, on the defensive end as well. I have real concerns about their ability lately to develop the top tier talent. And, I'm talking about Quinterly and Brian Antoine was a top 10 recruit. He's been a non-factor this year. He's barely contributed, and it's not because he's not healthy. He's just not effective. I don't know what exactly is going on. That was kind of a big loss thing for Villanova, but we'll see what Jay can do. This is going to be a tough coaching job the rest of the season.
I'm with you, and it seems like it falls out of character just because they've had players like Brunson that have been there for a number of years, players like Hart that have been there a number of years, even players like Bridges that's only been there 2 years, and then they develop into NBA talents, and that's not exactly the case of what's happening now. That doesn't fit the current profile of this Nova team. All right, let's scoot over. Let's go a little Ivy. The Ivy has always been a pain in the tuchus and tough to value properly, but this is a legit Penn team this season, Jeff. Brodeur can ball, and he's seemed like he's been there forever. And I'll tell you what, this freshman, Jordan Dingle, he can flat out score. The dude is dangerous. He looked like he belonged on the floor against Arizona and for Nova in both of those games. What was your early feel since you have a hometown like heartbeat on these guys? How high are you on this Penn squad? And do you think they're a legit threat in the Ivy and a legit threat overall?
Yeah, last year they actually won the Big Five in Philadelphia, if we remember. And do I think they're a tough out? Yeah, I think if they could find a way into the tournament, I could see it. I think the problem there is though, while they play well in some of their step-up games, they're not winning them. And you look at the win against Providence. I don't know how good of a win that is right now. UCF isn't the team they were last year. Alabama has major defensive problems. So I think on the surface, they're good. I think for Penn standards, but do I think they're better than Yale or Harvard? No. Penn is still kind of behind those groups. I think Brodeur is really good. I like Dingle. I think Devin Goodman's a really solid kind of a Swiss Army knife type of player. But there are some you look at both Yale and Harvard, both are significantly better defensively than those two teams. And Yale is a really good defensive team. I've been real impressed with how good James Jones' group's been. But yeah, I'm still not ready to think that they're better than those two groups. It could surely surprise. We have to remember, though, Harvard's going to host that tournament this year up in Boston. And would I be surprised if they got there? No. But as we know in the Ivy, it's not like it's a double bid league or anything. So, no, I don't think they're a team that I would really worry about. As far as from a betting perspective, though, yeah, sure. I think that's obviously intriguing. And, they still have to play Temple, which would be a Big Five game that I'll probably attend and look forward to. If you've never been to the Palestra and you're a basketball fan, I would strongly urge, before it goes away, you check it out.
Listen, that is we're talking like college basketball luminary status right there as far as the Palestra and the Big Five. So you're keyed on it right there. And listen, I've been on Harvard for a little while here. I'm with you on them. I think they're dangerous, especially if they get Towns back. We've seen what Aiken can do. He's an absolutely explosive scorer for them. But I'll tell you what, this Penn team is interesting, especially with a holdover like Brodeur and a newcomer like Dingle. I think they have some pieces that are interesting, if nothing else. All right, and let's hit up Temple. The lead guards for the out are legit. Pierre Louis is an absolute pain in the butt on the defensive end. He's averaging over 2 steals a game. Quentin Rose holds an NBA wing profile with his length and his offensive gifts. He's really diverse on the offensive end. But I guess the question is, Jeff, can they shoot it well enough to invest in this Temple team long term? With new coach McKee, what's the vibe on Temple right now?
Yeah, this is actually my team I root for. I have season tickets. I was at the Missouri game. I know this team pretty. Yeah, I know this team pretty well, and I think the big problem, at least with this team and with teams recently, i.e. last year and the year before, shot selection's been a problem, and that's one of the things about Quentin Rose that I really look and be concerned about long term. His shot selection's never been great. He's a great ball handler, though, and that's what Temple does really well. They don't turn the ball over, which is always a good thing to be. They also, I've been really impressed with how good they've been defensively. This team was just average last year on that side of the ball, but Aaron has come in and really kind of made it cool to play defense. I've often said that defense is kind of a want. You have to want to play and be good defensively. Nowadays, It's not, necessarily sexy to play defense. And he's been able to get those kids quickly to kind of figure it out. I would buy Temple just because I think they're better than I thought and I think the markets thought. Offensively, I think they'll be fine. And I don't know that they ever need to be elite offensively because I think they're going to win a lot of, 70 to 65 games, 68, 63 games with how good they've been defensively. I keep your eye out for Jake Forrester from Indiana. They brought him in as a transfer. He's really become and starting to be a major contributor on this team. He's starting to offer a little bit. And that's something that Temple really's not had on the block really for a long time. The bigs have always been kind of an issue. Now that Forrester's kind of being a good point in this, on this team, I think they're a team to buy into. And I think they're probably like 4th or 5th right now in the American. I don't know that they're at the, the Houston, Cincinnati, Memphis level, but that SMU kind of just outside of that group, I think they're right there, and I think they can compete. They're on the bubble. They're going to have to do some work here over the next couple of days and couple of weeks, but I think they'll get there by the end of the season.
I think if you're going to have two shot makers, quote unquote shot makers, at least late game shot makers, like Pierre Louis and Rose, like that, the defensive prowess that you mentioned gives them a shot in those late game situations, and I think they're worth paying attention to, especially in the uncertainty that is the America. The America is a little bit uncertain, especially with Memphis playing, borderline 5 freshmen and Wichita State trying to figure it out. And you mentioned SMU and the rest. There's no known commodity there. So maybe Temple does have an opportunity there. All right, Jeff, let's go a little widescreen. Let's look a little bit across the sport here. No number one team is safe. Everyone is taking on warts, and they look totally ordinary. Everybody's taking on loss. You tell us. You've watched the sport. What do your eyes tell you? What are 1 or 2 teams that you would identify that maybe you would invest in and count on long-term after viewing the carnage thus far? What top teams do you still trust out there, Jeff, and would you think are worth investing?
I would definitely always trust Gonzaga. I think they're the best team in the country right now. I think they're the team that will have as little – I mean, we all know their schedule, in that West Coast Conference is not good. But, they've passed really every test outside of Michigan, and that was one of the final games of a long, tough tournament down in the Bahamas. So
right, back-to-back, right.
Yeah, right. I don't really put a lot of stock in that. They still have quality wins over Oregon, Arizona, Washington, so I'm good there. You might be surprised at what I'm about to say, but I'm going to say it. I've said for years, I think Mark Few's the best coach in the country. I believe that. I think from a preparedness standpoint, his teams are always ready. They never seemingly have down games on the road. This team's deep as hell. I think they're talented as hell. I mean, you look at their front line. I mean, every year they have a good front line, and that's no different this year. And they've done it for large parts of the season without Killian Tilly. I mean, he seems to get injured every game. Right. Their guards have been terrific. I really like Gonzaga a lot. They're a team I would trust. I still got to tell you, I trust Duke. I mean, I think they're the most probably supremely talented team. I mean, outside of Stephen F. Austin, which I think was just a one-off. I mean, sometimes those things happen. I mean, sometimes you lose to a team you shouldn't. For anyone that watches college basketball regularly, I mean, Stephen F. Austin's a really good mid-major. I mean, they've been a good mid-major for a long time. So it's not like, it's not like Morehead State or Maryland Eastern Shore went in and beat Duke. I mean, Stephen F. Austin's a pretty damn good mid-major team, and Duke didn't play well whatsoever, and they found a way to lose. But, I mean, they still have good wins. Kansas, Michigan State, Virginia Tech, Georgetown. I mean, the list goes on. They have a ton of talent. Trey Jones is a great point guard. Vernon Carey looks like a really solid big man. They have a lot of pieces, and they have a shooter, Matthew Hurt, who kind of reminds me of a John Shire type. So they're a team I trust. I'll throw Kansas and Louisville in there as well. But outside of that, I think every team has some sort of blemish, if I could say so myself.
I think blemish is a good word. And look, the podcast is a big Gonzaga backer. I think if you're going to have transfer backcourt with Gilder and Woolridge, guys that have been there and done that at other places, and nothing's going to scare them when they see that on the floor. You're going to be fine there. And then they have the international experience that both Joel Ayayi and Petrusev have had over the summer, playing an international play in FIBA. Both of those guys got invaluable experience there, and both of those guys are playing huge roles at this point. You got the old hands, Corey Kispert, and you mentioned Killian Tilly. If Tilly stays healthy, he's one of the most versatile offensive players in the nation, end of sentence. So if you have both of those guys, and they've been doing some weird stuff too, I mean, in that Arizona game, they played Kitspert at the 4 a little bit when Tilly was out, and Arizona kind of didn't know what to do with that. They went really small, and they went like, kind of Warriors like death lineup on them. You mentioned how impressed you are with Few as a coach. I'm right with you. If he's not the best coach in the nation, he's in the argument for one of the best coaches in the nation, no doubt.
I mean, I don't think anyone quite realizes what he was able to do in the last 20 years there. They were nobody knew who they were. They were a completely random college in America. And, it's really amazing. But that game against Arizona was wild. I mean, they were horrible in the first half and somehow we're winning at the end of the first half. Yeah. I mean, and what's crazy about Gonzaga is, Gus, over the last couple of seasons, they've made runs, and Shema Karnowski in his senior season didn't play. Yep. Tilly was injured. So, I mean, they always have injuries, and they still find ways because they're deep and they recruit. And Tommy Lloyd is one of their assistants, and I'm still blown away to this day that Tommy Lloyd is still an assistant. I'm surprised that no team has thrown big money at him to coach, but some guys just enjoy being recruiters, and why wouldn't you? I mean, he's a highly paid assistant on a great team year after year. Why leave? I was actually surprised today that Gonzaga wasn't number one. I thought they would be, but I think they'll get there, and I think they will probably hold it for a while.
I think what it's going to set up is it's going to set up this unbelievable showdown with St. Mary's or BYU, whoever it might be, whoever they play first. Once another team takes on another wart, I think that's totally what's going to happen. And you're right about Lloyd, and I think that just speaks about the Gonzaga culture in general, Jeff. That culture that they have up there is something that's really appealing, and the lifestyle is something that is appealing to transfers when they go up there. It's appealing to the coaching staff because you haven't seen anybody leave to go to a bigger job. I mean, they are doing something completely right up there, and whatever they're doing up there equates in wins and 30-win seasons year after year. All right, so let's go a little betting here and talk a little bit rule change here, Jeff. Maybe one of the reasons for this craziness and all these teams taking on these warts is the three-point line. This season, the college game backed it up to the international distance. Jeff, how has the new three-point line affected wagering, whether it be over-unders or maybe some point spreads here and there? What have you noticed with your eyes with the new three-point line being backed up? Did you notice anything different with the offenses or the defenses?
Yeah, I think the first couple of games, there was a little bit of a learning curve. But I think any really good shooter, it's not going to bother them. I think all of it's kind of a wash as far as year to year. But I will say I've noticed that three-point defense is a lot better. I mean, There's 20 teams that are allowing 28% or less. I mean, that's quite good. And that, you look at Arkansas, they're allowing opponents to shoot 20% from three, which is, for whatever reason, it's still sustainable for them, over a month into the season. Yeah. People have asked me this, and I didn't really have much of a concern about it. I know for me, in my handicapping, it doesn't really play much of a factor to me. Like I said, I think most of these kids today, it's not going to affect them. They're gifted shooters, and it's going to kind of be a wash.
Yeah, I think that's I like that you brought up Arkansas, because I was going to ask about, is there a team that's benefited on either end of the floor? And I think that's one of those teams. And we talked about, Auburn and Villanova earlier, where they're still going to shoot their threes and get their shots up. It's not like their offensive philosophy is going to change or alter that much. But Jeff, what I will ask you is, because I know that you're watching and I know that you got an eye on a couple players or two, who are one or two players that you paid really close attention to this year, guard or forward, with their late game heroics or offensive explosions, with the three-point line being back where it is, that maybe they've benefited from that extra space, or, the late closeout, whether it be on defense, where they've really gotten their shot off and really gone bananas? Who are one or two players that have really surprised you and really been impressive?
I mean, I noticed the other day in that Oregon-Michigan game, Anthony Mathis, man, that kid can shoot, man. What a rocket that kid has. He'd be a guy that I definitely throw in there. There's a kid on Northern Iowa, Trey Burhow. He's shooting the ball really well out there. That team's been surprising. Northern Iowa out of the Missouri Valley. One guy that I think is must-see television, whatever he plays, and if you haven't seen this kid, I would highly recommend the price of admission to go see him. Jordan Ford at St. Mary's, he's terrific, man. I mean, any way you look at it, from dribble penetration to the three-point shot. I mean, he closes games out. he's about as underappreciated as it gets in the country. And, you talk about another guy, out in the West Coast, Randy Bennett's a hell of a coach as well.
Oh, yeah.
Jordan Ford, I love. What a great shooter.
We've been huge fans of Ford, no doubt. He can do a little bit of everything. He has this unreal floater game. He can shoot it from three, and the pace that they play at really values possessions. And Ford takes great care of those possessions and always makes sure that St. Mary's gets great shots in those possessions. And I love that you brought up Mathis. Mathis, the New Mexico transfer, was a high school teammate of Peyton Pritchard. So they have this like symbiotic relationship that's happening in the backcourt there for the Ducks that, is maybe 4 years old at this point, but those guys know exactly where they're going to be on the floor. And I think both of them have benefited from that. And you're right. Mathis can shoot the heck out of the ball. Holy smokes. Jeff, we hate to bring this up, but give the listeners a team or two that's really disappointed so far and that you would stay away from wagering while over the holidays. Who's dropped a stink bomb early this year that you're just really disappointed in? I hate to bring this up.
North Carolina.
Yeah.
I mean, I actually feel like really bad about this because I was actually really excited, like to the point with North Carolina where I said, like, I thought it was a crime that Cole Anthony could play in that offense because it was just unfair, I thought, with how good and how much pace they run with. But I think what you're seeing here, Gus, is the unfortunate problem when Roy Williams – and I want to make this clear. I don't like Roy Williams. I think he's one of the more overrated coaches in the history of sports. I think he's a great recruiter, and I I think he and Mike Krzyzewski benefit a lot from great players. I don't know how truly great of coaches they are. I don't, especially Williams. But now you lose Cole Anthony for the time being. Cole Anthony scores 19 points a game. They're only scoring 68 as a team. I mean, who scores on this team? I think it's a really logical question going forward. Armando Bacot is a good player, but he's been in and out of the lineup with injuries. I've been really disappointed in some of their transfers. Justin Pierce has been non-existent. Christian Keeling's been non-existent. I just don't know where it's going to come from. And you look at coming up, I kind of almost feel bad for them. They have to go out to Spokane now with that team. With that group, they have to play one of the most efficient offenses in the country. I'm definitely concerned. I mean, this team sucks right now. It's pretty simple.
Listen, that's all we need to say about UNC. And this is a team that I picked for the Final Four preseason because I love Cole Anthony at the head of that offense and thought that he would just drive the motor even better than Kobe White did last year. And it's been the complete opposite. And now with injuries besetting this team, man, it's just getting ugly. And like you said, we can use the word suck. That is where they're at right now. And you know what that means right now? That means they're going to go out to Spokane and win the thing. That's what that means right now, right?
That's a good point. I mean, I look at their schedule and I don't know how they beat Oregon, to be really honest with you. I know they kind of made a comeback in the game, but their efficiency numbers are ugly. I mean, particularly like a 2-point percentage, 3-point, they're ugly.
Yeah, even the offensive efficiency numbers for them are not where they normally are for a Roy Williams coach team where he really values pace, offensive rebounding, and shot attempts. That's not where he doesn't really value the 3-point shot. They are shooting 3-point. And you're right. The transfers are a great point, Jeff, because we just talked about the transfers that have been really effective for a team like the Bulldogs, like Gonzaga with Gilder and Woolridge. And Pierce has been, pretty much non-existent as a shooter off the bench. And Keeling, you thought would be a little bit more efficient as an ancillary guard, offensive initiator. And really, he's been not that. So I think they were expecting a little bit more. Maybe they were expecting a little bit of the Gonzaga input on their transfers, and they've really got nothing from those guys. All right, Jeff, let's swing it back positive. Which mid-major team have you hit big on thus far this year, whether it be wagering-wise or just prediction-wise, and hold value as conference play begins? And even with all the losses piled up, which traditional power do you still trust when we step up to the wagering window, this holiday season? So give us a mid-major team that you've keyed in on thus far and you think the trend might continue. And what power team do you think we can key in on and maybe make some money on moving forward?
Yeah, I think I mentioned them earlier, Yale. I think, you look at them 9-2 against the numbers so far this season, really good on the defensive end, good defensive rebounding team. Sometimes with stats and stuff, people look at it and say, well, they're not a good offensive rebounding team. Yeah, but they're really good offensively, so they don't necessarily have to be. I just want them to close opportunities out for other teams and get out in their offense. They've been on fire. I think they're going to kind of run through the Ivy League, and I think those games against Harvard are going to be really fascinating. They have a game on Sunday against Clemson. Don't be surprised if Yale hangs around and wins that game. As far as a traditional team, I think Ohio State is still a really good team, and they lost the other night. I actually was kind of not real surprised about them losing the other night. Minnesota, I think, and we all know this, the Big Ten's a great conference, so I think any team's going to have the ability to beat another team, but they're 8-2 against the number. I don't think they're going to have a lot of trouble. They'll get back at it and be just fine. One team also I'll throw out there, this is just kind of not only this year, but in general, San Diego State is, they're a team that, this could be the best team they've ever had there. And I know that people are going to say I'm nuts because they acquired Leonard at one point, but I honestly believe this is a better team overall than that Malcolm Thomas, Billy White, Kawhi Leonard team back. I think it was circa 2009, 2010, around then. Yep. You look at since 2017, Gus, 46-28 against the spread. They've been exquisite. Their numbers are really good defensively. They really just beat you down. And I look at this conference. I know Utah State's really good. That's going to be a tough trip out to Logan in a couple weeks, but this is a bad conference otherwise. UNLV's horrific. Nevada's down. Fresno's down. Boise's not great. This is a bad conference. And I'm not going to come out and say I think they can, but it would not surprise me if they're a 1 or 2 loss team. I think they're that good, and they've passed every test so far.
So I guess the question I'm going to follow up with there, number one, I think that's spot on because the transfers that they brought in and the job that Dutcher has done, especially winning the conference title and getting that NCAA bid. I think the question we have here is, could they have like a Wofford type season where they actually approach an undefeated in-conference record and then actually run the whole conference tournament? Is that a thing that you can see with the Aztecs?
Yeah, I can, because I think like their game situations are kind of suitable. Like they get Utah State kind of early in the season away. So you kind of like tough games in conference you want to avoid late in the season and that kind of thing. Right, I'm not saying that they're going to go undefeated, but it wouldn't surprise me. This is not a tough schedule the rest of the way. You're only going to play one top 50 team and you play them twice. I mean, outside of that, you're going to be a favorite in all these games. They got Utah coming up this Saturday, but I'm hard pressed to find a loss on this schedule. To be really honest with you, I think their half court offense needs to get a little bit better, but they've been such a good 3-point shooting team. And, you remember under Steve Fisher, how good they were defensively. They were on the regular, giving up, 58 points a game. That was kind of a norm, and they were kind of the cool place to play defense before Virginia kind of came on, and they've kind of taken over that the last 3 or 4 years. But when Steve Fisher was there and they had, the Kawhi Leonard teams and some of the ones after that, they were regularly giving up 50 points a game. And you look at this year, they're at 57.5 points a game, right now. I'm really satisfied with this team.
And look, if we're going to just talk straight up talent, they got Wetzel, a transfer from Vanderbilt. They got KJ Vagan, who can shoot it, from Santa Clara. They have Malachi Flynn from Washington State University that's come in. And they have some holdovers, a couple of guys that we love. Matt Mitchell, who's been there forever. It is like a do everything forward. So we know that this team has talent. That starting five is a legit starting five. There are no empty cogs in that starting five for the Aztecs. So we are down with them as far as like a legit team moving forward. And you mentioned their pace of play. If they can just have a couple shot makers at the end of the shot clock, at the end of the game, with their pace of play and their defensive prowess, that's going to make sense.
And they have that. Flynn is a baller, man. Like Flynn he's a cold-blooded dude, and he's only a junior. He's a knockdown player. He destroyed Iowa. He destroyed Creighton. He destroyed Colorado State. You're dead on the money. They also have they have a solid bench. They're an experienced team. I don't see a lot of issues with them. You occasionally can nitpick, but the way they play, the pace that they run, and the defense they play, we talked about it earlier with another, I forget the other team, but they don't have to win 84-80. I mean, they can hold you to 62 points and beat you that way.
That makes sense. I mean, yeah, when we were talking about the pace of play with like Ohio State and a couple other teams and Temple as well, like if you have that late game shot maker, that makes sense. All right, let's go. Let's do a little forecasting here. We got Wednesday. We have, like you mentioned earlier, we got UNC Gonzaga. There's no Cole Anthony. That's a big issue. Where's the value in that particular game? Then we'll get to a couple games on Saturday. Do you think that there's something that the listeners can key into looking at this game that might be important minus like the best player on the floor in Cole Anthony?
I equate a lot to – I bet a lot of soccer, Gus, and I do a lot in England. And, yeah, when you play – like when you have a Premier League team and they lose a player, it's not really a big deal because there's usually a guy that can come in and they can fill in or whatever. But when you get down to some of the lower leagues, you lose the best player and you're not going to – you're going to do anything. You're not even going to have possession most of the time. And I look at UNC and again, you take Cole Anthony out. Who the hell scores for you?
I don't know. I don't know.
Because he's kind of like when you lose a point guard like him, you basically lose everything because he's the guy that gets the basketball to Baycott and to Sterling Brooks and to everyone else. This team is really bad with Cole Anthony. I hate to say it, but I think if they go out and beat Gonzaga, it would be, to me on paper, one of the biggest upsets I remember in a long time. And North Carolina right now is only North Carolina by name. They're nothing else to me. If you told me they were Charleston Southern, I'd believe you. That bad. I think the only way they stay in the game is if Gonzaga – I think the one knock on Gonzaga, they're not a great free throw shooting team. They can let you hang around because of that. But the two key things you want to look for when you're backing an underdog on the road particularly is, can they make free throws? And in UNC's case, that would be a no. And can they make three-pointers? And in their case, that is a big no. So, yeah, and the problem for UNC also is they can maybe try to scrape away with getting offensive rebounds, but Gonzaga is one of the best defensive rebound teams in the country. So,
perfect.
Yeah, you're really hard-pressed to find, I think, anything to be excited about with UNC here.
That's exactly where I was going to go. I was going to say, if you were going to go the offensive rebounding with UNC, I was going to say Gonzaga is one of the top defensive rebounding teams and always has been. Let's take a peek at Saturday, but what else you got, Jeff?
Yeah, real quick, one other thing. I also have a system. I'm a big fan of backing a team, facing a team in the first game without a big-time player. So, like, for instance, Seton Hall on Saturday played Rutgers. Mm-hmm. Seton Hall was for the first game without Sandru Mamushkavili. If you hear anything from Kevin Willard, he basically discussed that they weren't ready. They weren't sure how they were going to deal with it. And that's a big bet against. Now, UNC might become a decent team without Cole Anthony, but in the first game without him, it's like, I don't know how to even compare it. It's like being a right-handed person and then you can only write left-handed. Like it's going to take some time. Like it's a really tough thing to do.
It's totally true. And look, and I know they run a ton of stuff through him at Seton Hall. And I know that Powell is like, the offensive fulcrum there, but they do run a lot of their half-court offense through him. So I get that part, but they run UNC runs their entire offense.
Who gets Baycott the basketball? Explain that to me. Cause I don't
know. It's not going to be Leaky Black cause he might not play either.
No, it's really ugly. And you got to go to Spokane. It's not like you're getting it in like Charlotte or something. You got to go across the country and I feel bad, but it is what it is.
Just one more thing and then we'll finish up on this game. You mentioned like they're only UNC like name or by the name on their jersey. Guess who's not going to care about that? All of the kennel crazies out there that are going to just absolutely accost every UNC possession and badger them like nobody's business. They don't care that Cole Anthony's not there. They see UNC on the jersey. They see, national champ the last couple of years. They see a Final Four. They see a legendary Hall of Fame coach. They see, they see that. They're going to go bananas and they can get up 20 on them. They're going to go up 20 on them in a heartbeat.
I've said it before. I think I mean, they're the best home court advantage in the country are probably Kansas State, VCU, Kansas, Gonzaga, Arizona, Duke, obviously, San Diego State. But I mean, Gonzaga's is, I mean, really high level. Just because, well, the one, I guess, good thing is students aren't there, which might help, but I still think they'll be there. It's North Carolina.
All right, I agree. And also, like, that's one of those communities where it doesn't matter if school's in session or not, right? Like, that's one of those things.
Right.
Yeah. All right, let's go to Saturday. You ready, Jeff? Let's go Kansas, Villanova. Let's go Butler, Purdue. Let's go Ohio State, Kentucky. Let's go Dayton, Colorado. There's great games. There's great stars all over the floor. We got Obi. We got Kamora Baldwin. Let's play fortune teller here for the listeners. Is there a game that you really like? Is there a play that you really like that the listener should key into? And is there a hidden gem that you really value on the Saturday slate? What's one thing that kind of caught your eye or caught your mind and really had your mind thinking and being like, you know what, this might be an interesting game for one reason or another on Saturday?
Yeah, I think, and we talked about Villanova earlier. This is going to be a good betting against spot here. I would imagine this line will be around a pick'em. It is a home game for Villanova, even though a lot of people don't, and I don't know where you are, Gus. I don't know where in the country you are, but
we're close to you in Jersey.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Villanova, as you know, is not anywhere near the Wells Fargo Center. It's like 20 minutes away. It's a road game, basically. And you have a team that's better than you coming in. They're the number one team. I think defensively, like I said, Villanova has a lot of problems. And I think in this game, it's not going to be easy to score. We mentioned how tough it is for them to score really outside of the 3-point line. I think Kansas is a real team. I don't know if Villanova has a guy that can guard as of week 8. And I'll look at this particularly against Mississippi State back early this season. Villanova had a lot of trouble with Abdul-Ado and their bigs. I think as of week it could have a big day. I'm going to be zeroing in on this game. I'm really looking forward to betting on it in basically a neutral site game. I'm looking at Kansas. I will say Dayton, Colorado is intriguing, but then I found out that it wasn't in Colorado. I was kind of excited that because that's a great home court advantage as well. But it's in Chicago. Dayton shouldn't have any trouble there. My advice to a lot of you would be if you're going to be betting until January 1st, you must, and I tell anyone that buys my picks, I tell them this, you must tread lightly until January 1st because you have exam schedules, you have Christmas, you have neutral site games, you have a lot going on. There's a lot of things. Look, perfect example tonight, Monday night. I'm on Texas Tech. They're sleepwalking against Southern Miss. There's just things about college basketball right now that you have to keep your volume low. You have to understand that there's a lot going on right now.
Jeff, Mike and I talk about it on the podcast all the time, just because we've played the game of being student athletes on a college campus during these times, and it's just a different vibe on campus. The players have a different schedule. Like, they're not going to classes like they normally would. The practice schedule isn't exactly where it normally is. Like, you're not getting your shots up at the normal times that you would. Like, everything's a little bit off kilter. And also just the vibe around campus. Once people are done with their finals, guess what? They're out of there. Yep. And so, like, day by day, hour by hour, there are student athletes or just students that are just leaving campus and changing the vibe and the atmosphere where the basketball student athletes have to remain. So it doesn't seem like a big deal, but it's definitely a tweak and something that they have to deal with. And it's not the same rigmarole and routine that they're used to. So we always say that there's always a dangerous game to be found during finals week and over the Christmas break. No doubt, Jeff, you're keyed in on that. No question.
And another thing real quick is you've had teams that have had long schedules. I mean, you've traveled a lot. You played a lot of games in a 2 or 3 week period. And, as you said, and you made a great point. I mean, there's just, it's a different routine. And I think one thing about high level athletes, whether it's college or pro or whatever, I know for me, like, I live a routined life. I'm big on routines and, I almost, it's like I'm in jail. I live the same routine every day. It's very odd, but I think athletes are kind of according to that as well, where you go to class, you go to breakfast, you go to that. And I think with sports betting, I don't want the routines messed up. And that's why I'll
Totally
continue to stay low volume just because until we get into conference play where the Christmas is past and all that exam stuff is past and everybody's there and everybody feels good, that's when I would start firing a little bit more. But yeah, that's a great point by you. You kind of get it.
And let's just look at it logistically, right? If you can't, if the assistant coach isn't there with the key to get into the gym to get your shots up, guess what happens? Your routine's broken off. Guess what happens? If the strength coach isn't at the weight room at 9:30 in the morning when he usually is, when you go after or before your morning class, guess what? Your routine is messed up. And then your whole day and your whole flow is thrown off. And then you turn into Texas Tech, just like you mentioned tonight. That's what happens. That's a reality. And as a 19 or a 20-year-old, and you're trying to navigate that, not only do you have to get through the day, but you're also going out and trying to win a game and execute a game plan. That's not the way to do it. You have to wait until January. I'm totally with you on that, Jeff.
Amen.
All right, let's get you out of here on our usual 4 final questions. All right, what's on the playlist, Jeff? What are you pumping out? What are you listening to when you're getting content, you're getting work done for the website, and you're editing a podcast? What have you been listening to lately?
Yeah, for anyone that knows me, I'm actually really a big hardcore rap guy, but I got a guy that I'm going to pump on your show. If you're out there and you like good hip hop, not this stupid stuff nowadays, but I found this kid recently. His name is Marlon Craft, MarlonCarft. He's from New York, Hell's Kitchen. He is fat, unbelievable. Some of his freestyles are really well done. He's a really social conscious rapper, and he's someone that, he doesn't care about jewelry and that kind of stupid stuff. He's tells stories and kind of brings social justice to some of the music. And yeah, he's a guy that I really like right now. And just my occasional going back into the crates and listening to Cameron or Jadakiss or whatever. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm rolling with always.
Okay, I like that you went a little old school there with Jadakiss. That's nice, and I'll definitely check out Marlon Craft. All right, trust. Jeff, who is one player that you will blindly trust in the whole entire nation for your own reasons with the game on the line? Who is that one guy you want the ball in his hands with the game on the line and you need to win that game?
I actually went a little different. I think a lot of people give you Miles Powell or something like that, but
Marcus Howard, something like that, right?
Mac McClung is playing at a wildly high level right now. What they've been able to do there with some of the off the court issues they've had and just losing to Kinjo. Mac McClung shoot 93% from the line, 42% from three. He's putting them on his back. I think on the surface, I don't know if there's anyone playing better than him right now. So I'll go McClung. I like Moretti too at Texas Tech. And surprisingly enough, one of the reasons they lost the DePaul game is because he missed one free throw, and that was the only one he's missed all season. Right. But, yeah, I'll go McClung on that one, guys.
Listen, I think if you're going to talk McClung, I think he's just in that conversation with those top guards in the Big East, whether it be Baldwin or Miles Powell or Marcus Howard. You have to include him in that conversation, no doubt. If you leave him out, you're doing him injustice.
And he's got a great personality. He's just like a warrior. He's tough. He's got that. You could sell him, and he's exciting, man. I remember watching him in high school at Gate City in Virginia. He's a hell of a player, man.
I think he's got a little swag. I think he plays a little grit. He's got a
lot of it. Yeah. Great call.
All right, tastes. What's one craft beer we need to know over in the Philly area that you've enjoyed lately? Give us a craft beer we need to keep our ears and taste buds out for, okay?
Gus, I hate to be boring. I actually don't drink, man.
Okay.
I haven't drank since I'm 30 now. I was probably 22 the last time I drank. I have issues with, I gamble a lot. I love brunettes that are out of my league. Those are enough vices for me. I actually I don't like the taste of alcohol, to be real honest with you. And I'm not a drug guy either. I don't smoke weed or any of that kind of stuff. I kind of keep myself whole as far as, to be really honest. I don't know. I'm going to say
everything in moderation, Jeff. And I'm glad you have that in moderation. I think that sounds appropriate. That balances out the other vices that you mentioned that might exist out there. All right, and travels, let's get you out of here on this one. What's one game you are most looking forward to road tripping or just getting over to see in person this year? What's one game you're looking to to take in person.
Surprisingly enough, I just want to see Dayton in the flesh. So I'll go see them play St. Joe's on January 5th, I think it is. Excellent. I just kind of want to see them play. So, yeah, I mean, I'll see plenty of Temple this year. Temple, Houston, all the Temple games, when the good teams come in. I want to try to I was at the Final Four a couple years ago. I want to try to get back to that. Yeah, I just want to see Dayton kind of in the flesh. And I'm a big, I watch a lot of high school basketball. So, Obi Toppin's a guy that I kind of want to see live. So I'll definitely make sure I get to there. They're as good an offense as it gets. So I want to be there to see them.
Yeah, I think he partnered with Crutcher in the backcourt. I mean, that they have something going here. And Obi is going to be, I feel like he's going to be like the Brandon Clark this year, where people just kind of explode on him and they're going to undervalue him.
That's a great comparison. I was excited watching him play like Virginia Tech and Kansas, just because when I was younger, I loved Kenyon Martin. I was a big fan of him. And he reminds me. Yeah, he reminds me a lot of Kenyon Martin coming out. And I could talk all day about draft picks, but I think he could be a lottery pick, surely.
I don't say it. You know what? Here's what I think about the comparison with Kenyon. I think he shoots better than Kenyon. How about that?
Yeah, no, he definitely does. He was really. I actually had the over in that Virginia Tech game with Dayton. They went on a like a 6 or 7 minute stretch where it seemed like every three was going in, and he was even picking and popping. Those rims out in Maui are always very soft, so it works out to bet overs there. But yeah, I love the kid. He's one of my favorite players in the country right now.
I'm totally with you. We love watching him too over here. All right, Jeff. Hey, listen, knock out the next EP of Don't Teaser Me, Bro, on the podcast. Love that you have live callers calling in. That's really cool that you provide the listeners a voice. That's a valuable part of any podcast or any broadcast. And happy holidays down there in Philly, Jeff. Thanks for jumping on the pod. We appreciate it, man.
Yeah, it was fun, Gus. I appreciate it. Yeah, check me out. Go check these guys out. They're doing some good things. Thanks for having me on, Gus. Hopefully next time I'll get your boy Mike Randall on here with me. I've done stuff with him.
I think that needs to happen before the season's up. Do you want to try to make that happen?
Hey, if you're this close, I might even come do it live. But yeah, I have no problem. Whatever you decide on, I'll do. I'll be there.
That's beautiful. Thanks, Jeff. Hey, listeners, please give Jeff a follow at Jeff Nadu, capital J, capital N on the Twitter. And don't forget, you can follow him over on BMOCwins.com, bigmanoncampuswins.com. So follow that up over there. Jeff, thanks for giving the podcast a couple of minutes and talking some college hoops with us. We appreciate it. Cheers, Cilantro Gazzalazzi out there.
Cheers, Gus. Thanks, man.
I'm addicted to the appetite. It's a seat in the van.